Good evening. It's a Tuesday night. It's our date night. It's the coaching hour with Boitumelo. It's a wonderful Tuesday. Got good news and bad news. Yeah, it's been one morning for me that hasn't been easy. But I look forward to this show. We've got a wonderful coach with us. We're still continuing with Coach Comfort Sachoyo, and he is still going to teach us. Still going to educate us in terms of solutions for our businesses. And as we gain from his work experience and experience with working with businesses, starting ventures and businesses that have made it. He also works in the corporate world. He worked with all sorts of businesses, and we are going to learn a lot. I mean, this information that we are getting here, it's information that people pay lots of monies, and corporates pay a lot of monies to gain this information. But for you, Zoe Life listeners, Coaching Hour listeners, this comes to you for free because he's a good man, and he's giving back to the society in this way by contributing to our livelihoods, contributing to our knowledge, and his love for and passion for helping people. So it's going to be a very good show. It's going to be a very engaging show. I hope you will bring your notebooks, your notepads, your pen, and your recorder, wherever you need to record his voice, and the lessons that we are going to get from him today. But before we go on, I just want to go back to that bad news that I got today, actually this morning. I got news that our friend, a Jeepers Club member, I'm a member of the Jeepers Club as well. I'm sure you can see me broadcasting from my Jeep. The bad news is that we've lost one of our members, Thabo Mapalakani. A great man indeed. I've known Thabo, I think, since last year, or a full year, a full year and some months. And Thabo was such a good person. How I got to know him personal is that he posted something on our group, on our Jeepers Club group. And he said, I am going to do something in Tembisa. If anybody wants to join me doing a CSI, corporate social investment, but coming from his own, it would be a community development project. If anybody wants to join me, and at the same time, I was also planning to go and buy food and food parcels for my children at Tsepang Children's Home in Tembisa. This is during the first lockdown. I think it was March or April last year, when the first lockdown was announced. And I thought about my children in Tsepang. These are children that are coming from destitute families. These are children that are coming from child-headed families, children that are, who don't have parents, and parents who are there who are unemployed and, willing to take care of their children, but they're unemployed. There's no source of income in the house. And families that are really destitute. And I took to myself and went and bought food. I told a couple of my friends, and we put money together. We managed to raise about 7,000 rand within a few hours. And I went to Macro. We bought some food parcels. I went to Tembisa, and then Thabo came into the picture. He said, let's work together. Thabo owned a shop in Tembisa, and he owned a shop again in the plots in Midrand, and he emptied his whole shop. He sells chickens, he sells eggs, he sells vegetables. He has a full shop, and he emptied his shop. He said, if people are going to die of hunger and I'm holding on to the food that they cannot even walk to come and get. Remember that lockdown, we had like 21 days where you're not supposed to leave your house. And that's when we did this project with Thabo. He said to me, no, don't worry about, the other food parcels. Just buy, when you come to Tembisa, just buy pap, and I will give you the vegetables, the fruits, and anything else, the chicken, live chickens and eggs. And I bought about 150 bags of pap, milli meal. And Thabo, honored his word. And I worked with him. We started at his home. His shop is not far from his home. And he started, the way he did things. He started with the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the oldies. He started with them, serving them, chickens and pap and a bag full of vegetables. We call it a mix, kokas. He served them. The way he served them, he made sure that each and every granny would come and get. And I remember myself walking one granny because she didn't have kids that came with her. I walked the granny to her house, and I did that with a couple of them again. And, Thabo's community loved him because in tough times, he was with them. He was not only collecting money and selling to them, but they were a community, they were a family. And I remember how Thabo's children loved him. One humbling experience I had with Thabo Mapalakane is when he told me, my sister, I cannot read. I cannot read. I do not know the numbers. But, me being me, I try to be streetwise so that I can be able to work with money. I can type a few things there and there, but don't be surprised when we talk on WhatsApp. I always send you voice notes because I cannot type a lot of things. I tried to go to school, but I failed. I could not, and my school did not help me at that time. So he grew up as somebody that could not read and write, but, he tried to get on with life. Somebody that got arrested at some point for something that he honestly did not do. But lo and behold, he got out of prison. He came back and he worked for his community. He worked for his children. As we speak, he died as a young man. I think he's in his early or late 30s, just before 40. And this young man has children, and I've seen him with his children. He teaches them how to work the business, how to work the vegetables, how to work his garden. And he taught his brothers how to make it in business. He shared his business with his entire family. So his entire family depended on this business, collecting vegetables as far as Polokwane, Venda. He would go to Breads. I would call him in his truck, collecting vegetables from all over the country so that he can sell, and he can sell good quality of vegetables to his community. I say to Thabo Mapalakane's family, allow him to rest in peace. I know that your hearts are troubled at this point, and it's not an easy thing to accept. I did not accept the news quite well this morning when I heard, and I pray that the Lord will strengthen you as a family. I pray that Thabo's children will be strengthened, and I pray that I hope that they have learned a lot from their father to continue with his legacy, to continue with his business. And to the Jeepers Clubs, I pray that the Lord will help you. Your hearts may not be troubled, but allow him to rest in peace. My friend, my Jeepers Club fellow member, rest in peace, my friend. We continue with Coach Comfort Satwayo. Coach, welcome.
Welcome, Coach. I think first and foremost, sorry about what happened. I can tell that the man was a great leader, and it's sad that we can lose such a great person. So I'm sorry about that. Be strong. Be strong in the Lord, be strong. It's not easy. All right, maybe let me lift you up a bit. Let me lift you up a bit. It's interesting in terms of the journey of life, and we all have the path and the part we play in our journeys. Sometimes we may not understand why, but only God knows when it's time to move, to transition to the next life. So I'm really sorry about that. So be strengthened and be strong. Be comforted.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you. I will be comforted with words coming from comfort.
It's not easy. I can tell.
It's not easy. quite a very good young man. But what do you have for us this week, Coach? We have to continue, and we have to celebrate these lives, but life has to continue. What do you have for us this week, Coach? What are we talking about this week?
All right. So this week we're continuing from the session that we had the previous time, and this time around we're talking about how you build a solution structure for your vision and your mission. Because everything starts there. Before we talk about any development, any planning, any structure, or whatever that needs to be done, we need to talk about the genesis of everything, which is the vision. What is your vision and what is your mission as a leader? If we don't talk about it, we'll then miss the mark in terms of where we are going and where we are. So I know that a lot of people, they focus on the fruits, they focus on the results, but they then tend to forget about the vision and the mission. And when you remember or when you reflect on the mission and the vision, it's probably somewhere sitting in a document, somewhere sitting in a presentation, and people don't understand what it means to have a vision and what it means to have a mission. So today we'll talk about it, and we'll just try our level best to give an outline of how to give structure to that. Because as a leader, you need to understand that yes, you have a solution. Yes, you have an idea that you want to implement and deploy, but that idea has to be structured within a specific vision. That idea has to be structured within a specific mission. So, and that's important. And that will be in line with the strategic outlook as part of our deployment. Yeah.
Great, Coach. I was saying, I spoke while my mic was off, but I'm glad we are talking about that, because most of the time, as you said, we forget. We write these things at the beginning of the business, because it is a requirement, and it's something that we put on our websites. And after the website, you've forgotten everything about what the mission statement was, what the values are, what the vision was. And please revive us this evening, Coach. We need to revisit those things, and we need to live by those, because those actually represents the principles and the values of our business. So if we do not revisit them, we're definitely going to lose them.
Yes. Yeah. So vision is quite important, Coach, in that, let's talk about vision. Having a vision is quite important in that your vision talks to you about how you can stretch yourself and what you want to become. So the vision really talks about the end product. The vision talks about the end picture. The vision talks about the final results. But the vision talks about the ultimate goal of what you want to do. What is the ultimate goal and how does it look like? And that's important. Not just the goal, but how does it look like? Hence, a vision has to be visualized, because when it's visualized, you can see the end picture. Most projects in the corporate space, they visualize the end product. They visualize how the vision should look like. And that's important, because if you don't visualize it, it's going to be difficult to comprehend, and it's going to be difficult to maintain that vision. So you need to see what you want to become. You need to see what you need to become, and that becomes a mirror, and that becomes a reference point in terms of what you want to build. So that is why a leader without a vision cannot lead people, or a leader without a vision cannot really take people further. So you cannot trust a leader without a vision. So a leader without a vision is a blind leader. Is a blind and confused leader, and that's important. So we're going to touch base on the key fundamentals of outlining a vision and linking it to a mission. So what is the vision and what is a mission? So a vision speaks to us about the end goal, or the ultimate picture of what you want to establish. And hence most vision statements, when they write down vision statements, they use the word to be, to be, because you want to be the best in class. You want to produce this best product because you want to become something in that sense. Now, a mission statement is that a vision and a mission that they're integrated, or they're linked rather. So you have a vision which speaks to what you want to become in the future, or what you want to achieve in the future. But then a mission speaks to how to achieve the mission. So it's the how part. Yeah. So,
okay.
So the mission speaks to the how part. And the danger for any leader to have a mission statement and a vision statement and forget about it, that's dangerous, because you cannot operate, if you operate outside the parameters of your vision, operate outside the parameters of your mission, therefore you're building something else. You're not building the vision, the original vision that you wanted to set, So the mission has to be deployed or cascaded from a mission statement into becoming a tangible, practical strategy in implementing it in order for you to realize your vision. So a mission statement, it's something that must be cascaded in order to become a practical, strategic template and reference point in terms of what you need to do. Is it clear?
Yes,
all right,
absolutely.
So yeah, so those are the key things that are important. Yeah, are you with me?
I hear you, Coach. And I read a vision. We're actually working on the vision. Somebody sent me a vision, and yeah, that's why I'm saying, a vision is a wish list of what you want to become. So I read through these vision statements during the week, and it sounded like to be the best free education supporter in South Africa. It just describes your type of business and what exactly does it offer. So you put it in short sentences, but also becoming, remembering that you want to be the best in what you do, but it must also explain what the business is about. You cannot become the best of something that we don't know.
Yes.
So it must actually explain. If you have 5 vision statements or 4 of them, in each and every one of them, your service provision or your service type must be included to become the best agricultural college in the Northwest, to become, and then your mission then comes back and answers how you're going to do that. I totally agree with you there, Coach. I just wanted to put it in practicality and make sure that I understand and our listeners understand that in the vision statements, your service must also be featured there. So you cannot be the best of something that we don't know. Right, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, absolutely. So now, with the vision statement and the mission, is that understand that, yes, your mission becomes the practical blueprint or strategic blueprint that you'll use to deliver or towards your vision or work towards your vision. But also, it is through your mission that you develop rather your values. So it is where you develop your values, because the mission speaks to activities that you do in order to deliver, in order to meet a specific vision. But then those activities are established on a foundational structure, which is based on key values. So yes, you're going to do whatever it is that you want to do, but then the values will then become the center of what you seek to achieve. So when you have a vision, you automatically deprive your values. So if your values are around excellence, if your values are around efficiency, if your values are around openness, if your values are around, target focused or results focused, and so forth. So those are some of the things that are key and important. So you need to understand as a visionary in that you need to have this outline. It is dangerous to have to bring people on board if you have not defined your vision, if you have not defined your mission, and if you have not defined the values of your mission, because whoever that will come on board will come with their own culture, will come with their own ideologies, and they can mess up the system. And that is why it's important to define it at the earlier stage, so that whoever comes and work with you, they need to understand that the values in your project, the values in what you do, what they represent and all of that. So that's important. So
they need to know where they fit in, because you have described your vision. They need to know where they fit in your vision, because when you explain that vision statement in 4 bullet points, everybody else that comes into the business must find themselves in those 4 bullet points, right, Coach?
Yes. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So people can walk together in one direction, but not in one accord, and not in one accord in a sense of being one at heart. And I think that's one of the challenges we have, in that not every vision and mission is fit for everyone, and people must understand that. And some organizations, they have mission and visions that are not fit for everyone. So you don't bring anyone who is capable of just working, but the person must be fit to work in that environment, fit to work in that space. Because if you're not fit to work in that space, then you'll not be the right candidate to deploy the mission. And that's where the problem is. The biggest mistake I remember I did with my past projects is that I had an exciting vision, knowing what to do and all of that. And then guess what? The first thing that I did, I invited my friends, people that I know, people I thought I can work with. And guess what? There was immediately a conflict in terms of I brought people on board who don't have the capacity to deliver, and yes, they have capability in other areas, but not necessarily capacity to deliver the mission. So the mission, it is the mission that will describe the type of people that are required. It is the mission that will describe the skill sets required in order for that mission to be established. And that's important. So it is the mission that describes who do I need in order to become, not just a vessel or not just a person, but who do I need, who's skilled enough to deliver this. Okay. So that's quite important. Yeah. So when you have drafted your vision and your mission, and you are clear in terms of what you need to do, you are clear in terms of your values and your principles as a business or as a project, the next step that you need to look into is what you call a strategic outlook, meaning you deploy your mission. And I want to say this, Coach, your vision will always remain the same, but your mission will always change. So you have one vision doesn't change. If you decide to change your vision, it's something that happens randomly or something that happens over time. But what changes sporadically is the mission, not necessarily the vision. So the vision must always remain fixed, because then if you have multiple visions and we're not clear, then you're confusing everyone. Exactly. You're going to confuse the people that you're building with. So the vision remains the same, but the mission changes all the time. All right. So that's important. Now we talk about how do you deploy a mission right? So I'm going to touch levels of deployment. What are the levels of deployment you take in when you deploy your mission as a leader? Number one, you need to deploy your mission in a way that it will allow you to have a strategic outlook. Now, what do I mean? In that, when you know that you want to achieve this specific vision, now the question is, how do I achieve this vision through this mission? So you then deploy the mission into a practical activity structure that would allow you to have an outlook for your short-term and your long-term view. All right. So you cascade your mission into short-term and long-term. So what do I mean is that you say, okay, what is my priority? What is my priority for this year, and so forth? So it has to be structured. It has to be documented. It has to be structured. It has to be documented, because you cannot achieve a vision if you have not outlined your mission properly. Like I said before, every activity within the value chain comes at a cost. And people need to understand this, that gone are the days where you are just all over the show and we don't know whether you're coming or going. And that's a problem. Now, hence, as a leader, you need to have structure. You have to have structure, and the structure says, what is your outlook short term and what is your outlook long term? Now, in your outlook short term and long term, there's a principle called prioritization. So what do you mean when you say prioritization? So you find people doing multiple things within the same time and then within the same space, and hence there is no progress. Now, prioritization is critical in that in the industry it's proven that you need to have at least a maximum of 3 solid priorities for the year going forward. You can have 5, but if you have capacity for that. Now, when you prioritize, what you mean is that you're saying to yourself, the first priority that I need to work on this year or this semester, it's this. What is it? You need to define it. That's number one. Define the priority. I want to achieve this. That's the first thing. Right. When you outline the priority to say, I want to achieve this, the next point is that, yes, you have outlined the priority in terms of what you need to achieve for whatever period. And then what would be your priority number 2 and what would be your priority number 3? You outline them accordingly. Now, bearing in mind that these priorities for the year, they can move from short-term and long-term. Short-term could be within the window of a year. Long-term could be anything above a year, depending on the metrics you use. Some people use different standards of what is short and what is long. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, you can define your standard. Now, when you have defined short-term and long-term activities in terms of what you need to do, the next question after you need to ask yourself, do I have capacity to meet this priority? If yes, therefore you then move to the next level. If no, therefore you need to see, where do I get capacity in order to deliver that? You might have a priority that requires more planning or more structural work, and yet you are not a strategic person or structural person. You are an operational person. Therefore, that priority cannot happen if it depends on you. You need to get someone who has capacity who's disciplined enough, well coordinated in terms of coordinating things. So for every priority, there has to be a resource that is fit to deliver. So the problem we have with leaders is that, and this is why most plans fail or most goals fail. It's because you have a great plan, you have a great strategy, but you are trying to implement something that you don't have capacity for, and hence it fails. It has nothing to do with you. You are not the problem. The problem is that you are not fit for that specific task. You might be fit fit for another task, but you're not fit for the specific task. That's important. Now, what is also important as we review is that when you've jumped the hurdle of capacity, then we need to come into the space of defining the main success criteria for that goal or for that priority. So if you have a priority, when you say you want to do the specific task for the next 3 months, for the next semester, what is your success outlook for that specific criteria or priority? When you say that you have achieved success, what does it mean? So what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about setting up a measure or a KPI, a key performance KPI for yourself, to say, if, for example, I'm giving an example to say, if I want to build a house, right? If I want to build a house, I need to define a criteria to say, if my priority number 1 is to build a foundation and set up the structure, that's number 1. Now, if I have activities that I need to do come January, February, March, and so forth, I need to define a success criteria for each week and each month. What I mean is that if the end of the week passes, what is it that I will say that I have done in order for me to say I've done well? Come end of the month, what is it that I will say that I have done well in terms of the specific goal? So it is defining a success criteria for the task. To say, I want to, end of January, I want to be at level 1 of my foundation. Come end of February, I want to be at level 2. Come end of whatever, I want to be at level 3. And that's important, because you cannot set a goal without setting a standard or define a success criteria for that standard or for that goal. Then how do you measure your success? You know, how do you measure your success? Because you can only measure your success if you set a success criteria for yourself. And that's what is important. You find a lot of leaders doing things without setting a success criteria for themselves. And that's important. Are you with me, Coach?
I'm with you, Coach. I was actually thinking about this very famous saying that I also like to use: you cannot achieve what you do not measure.
Yes.
And it's just as simple as that. You cannot achieve that which you cannot measure. It's just as simple as that.
Right. So like I said, to say, when you have a success criteria, it then helps to measure your productivity. It then helps to measure your performance. You know that come quarter 1, come quarter 2, these are the things, or these are the milestones you need to reach and you need to achieve. And that's important. And you also need to measure the capacity of how much it costs for you to implement that. It's one of the things that people neglect, to say, for every priority, how much will it cost to implement a specific priority? You need to have that in place. You need to have that in place in terms of knowing how much will it cost you to implement priority number 1, priority number 2, priority number 3. And the rule is, you cannot implement priority number 2 if you have not established priority number 1. So you need to finish priority number 1, implement it successfully, then move to priority number 2, and then priority number 3. All right. And that will help in terms of your success build-up. And that's important. All right. Now let's move to the next level. The next level speaks to performance measures development, which is more strategic and operational outlook. All right. Now, I remember there was a time where I was invited by this company and they wanted help in terms of performance measures development, you know, and the guy was saying, look, I have a team of guys who are working every day, but it's difficult for me to measure their productivity. It's difficult for me to measure their performance, you know, and so forth. And I've seen in a lot of projects is that people are struggling to to measure productivity because they never took time to develop the standard for productivity. It is dangerous for you as a leader to invite someone over to come and work in your project if you have not yet defined the productivity standards for yourself. Meaning, if you get someone in to work for you or with you, you need to define their productivity activities. What is it that they need to do? And when they do what you expect them to do, as you measure them, you then define them as performance or non-performing. So you cannot say I'm a non-performer if you have not introduced a performance standard to me. I don't know, you get me. You cannot say to me, I'm a non-performer, I'm not doing well, if you have not defined a performance standard. All right, that's important because a performance standard helps you to benchmark, helps you to understand that how good you are in order to deliver. Okay, so it's important. It's important to do that. It's important to build a performance measure standard, because when you build your performance measure standard, it then helps you to have a practical outlook for the day-to-day activities and the long-term activities. So what I mean is that if I have a project, a dressmaking project. We do school uniform. Let's say we talk about school uniform. We do school uniform for kids, right? Now, I'm inviting people to come and work for me, and when I invite them, I need to already define the performance measures for them to say, yes, you can going to come and work in this project. The expectation is that in this project, a day, you're going to do this much in terms of doing the dressmaking or this uniform thingy. And the expectation is that the output for the day is this much, the output for the week is this much. And if we have challenges, this is how we address them and so forth. But there has to be that standard. There has to be that standard. And if you don't have the benchmark, or if you don't have that standard, create it first before you invite people. Take time to do a study on yourself, to say, if you do a dress, how long does it take to do one dress? And document that study, document how long it takes for you to do that. So document everything, so that when you document everything, it's easy for you to build capacity. When someone asks you, if we want this product from you, or if we want this service from you, how much or how long will it take for you to deliver? You need to have answers as a leader. You need to have data to say, yes, within a week I can deliver, and so forth. So you need to define your ultimate operational capacity. Your ultimate operational capacity in terms of your productivity. And that's important. So you need to define that accordingly. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Coach.
Okay. So the next part is that there are two things as I move away from the performance measures development. Of course, the performance measures development, it has different layers. For the sake of this presentation, I will not go to the detail because we are not in a workshop type of an environment. If we were, I was going to go deeper into it and explain it properly.
I think we also have quite intelligent and inquisitive listeners. They will go and find out more. They can even contact us if they want you to come and workshop them on this topic. So I want us to continue, Coach, because we only have a few minutes.
All right. Yeah. So what is important is that there's a strategic outlook and there's an operational outlook. So the strategic outlook helps to know how to manage a specific portfolio. And an operational outlook will help you to manage the day-to-day runnings. Now, the fourth part is the setting up of the reviews. So when you set up an operational review, is that you set up an operational review in order to drive productivity. Now you reference based on the work that is done. You look at the work that needs to be done, but you then reference it in terms of the set priorities to say, what is the set priority for this? And you then review it on a day-to-day basis based on that criteria. So the review session comes in where you sit in, you review the activities, whether you are meeting the goals or not. So if you don't have a platform where you review your performance and to assess whether you're doing well or not, then you know that you're not on the right track. Now, the most important thing again about the performance measure is that they need to be leading and lagging. And the leading and the lagging are key, because the leading part will then help you to understand the structure and the outlook of the things you do. So when you review your day-to-day performance, you can then see the gaps. And when you then see the gaps, and then you can then talk about problem solving. How do you then problem solve in order to close the gap? So the deployment of your mission has to move in that sense, in that when you have a review structure to measure what is it that, how are you performing this week? How did you perform this week? And if the performance was okay, therefore it's good. If the performance was not okay, then what is the next action? So you need to have an action plan that comes from the review. So you review and you have an action plan to address the gap, to address areas of non-productivity. So the action plan comes in, and the action plan will help in terms of problem solving. The action plan will come in, will help in terms of continuous improvement. So that structure must be there already. So in a nutshell, I know you're running out of time. In a nutshell, the mission deployment, it has to, number one, have an outlook in terms of long-term and short-term. It has to have an outlook in terms of priority number 1 to priority number 3. It has to have an outlook in terms of defining what is it that you want to measure in order to assess your performance. And number 3, you need to have a platform where you will start monitoring your performance, and on a day-to-day, weekly basis, to review if you're doing well or not. And then also have an action plan structure that would help to address the gaps and areas of concern. And that's important. So that structure, it has to be in place. How you're going to do things, the whole outlook, it has to be in place before you even invite people to come on board. That's important.
My understanding is that, Coach, this is the integral part of your strategy. If any business does not have this in their strategy, that strategy is just useless, because you need to know when you go into business, you just don't go into business with all the excitement and everything, but you need to have mitigation plans. You need to know, if this doesn't work in the business, this is what I'm going to try. If this doesn't work, this is what I'm going to try. If I bring in such a skill and this skill is underperforming, this is how I need to reboot or guide them, or, because all of these things are actually going to make sure that your business is sustainable. These are just not, and these are things, Coach, we must be blunt about this. These are things that, a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to go into that. They just want to chase the money, run around like a headless chicken, and be chasing money all over, when that excitement's come to an end. Because every business has a season.
Yeah.
Every business has a season. You have that season where, you're making it, you're killing it, you're collecting money, you're making money. But when business is challenged, a simple example is an example of the lockdown, the COVID-19 lockdown. Many businesses had to revisit their strategies, their visions, their missions. They had to revisit these things, because the normal was no longer normal. The common sense was no longer common, and we had to revisit the strategy, and we had to revisit the pointers that Coach Comfort is talking about this evening. So, Coach, take us deeper into this strategy. What more do you still have for us?
All right. So maybe just to wrap up, I just gave an outlook of the elements of having a vision and having a mission, but with that mission, how you deploy the mission into practical activities, because whatever activities that you do must be linked to the main mission, and the mission is linked to the main vision, short term and long term. Now, this is what you call a management system. So it's like a management system that you create for yourself. And this is important because I have seen that we don't fail because we're not capable. We are failing because we are operating outside a system. We don't have a set system. We don't have the right management system. And because we don't have the right management system, we then find ourselves losing money, losing processes. So Mina, as an industrial engineer or as a lean expert, the first thing that I check or assess for any person who's working is that I check their system. Do they have an operational system? So for example, when I phone you, let's say you're doing catering, immediately when I call you for service, I say, hi, Boitumelo, I see you're doing catering. I would like to use your service. Immediately, I'll check whether you have a system or not. And someone who doesn't have a system, it's clear. You can see how they administrate things. They are not structured. You know.
What would they say, Coach? What would they do that will make you be sure that they don't have a system?
Okay, the first thing I know, okay, there are two things. Of course, I'm asking for a quote, right? I'm asking for a quote. Okay, send me a quote. Okay, sure. Then they'll later on maybe send a quote, right? And then I would then ask specific things. So how do you work with this? How do you work with that? Then so how I pick it up is that the customer is the one that is always asking questions to say, how does this work? How does this work? How does that work? You know, then it shows that the person is in business but doesn't have a set system. So when you have an operational system within your business, it works differently. So immediately when a call comes in, already there's a structure. You can already tell me to say, okay, this is how we work. First thing, it's a quote. After a quote, we have a meeting. If you accept the quote, you tell me your structure. The first thing, it's a quote.
I'll be able to deliver in 3 days.
Yes.
Or this is how we work. We receive the quote, we go and check, and we will give you a final quotation, or we will give you, a final quote before we actually invoice you for the services, or before we even deliver. Or we will check with you in a couple of days if this satisfies your requirements as a client. I guess those things are exactly what you're talking about, Coach.
Yeah. It's a design system, yes. So you give a client a clear outlook of how you work, right? A client must not always call you when is that thing coming? Like I was saying to this graphics guy, I was saying to him, I gave him a quote. I said, design me a book cover, right? Design me a book cover. I gave him the details. And then I walked away. Then the next thing, he's quiet for the week. He's quiet for 2 weeks. Now I must be the one phoning and say, hey, when is the book cover ready? Oh, yo, don't worry, next week, Wednesday. You know, so
don't worry, worries me.
Yeah, it clearly shows that
word.
Yeah, it clearly shows that people are operating without a system. So if you have a system, listen, if you have a system, you'd say, this is how we work. You send me the stuff. This is the documentation we follow. If you're not happy with this is where you sign off the first order. After signing off the first order, you pay 50%. After paying 50%, normally after the payment is done for this type of project, after 4 days, we'll send you this. After the 5th day, we finalize. The 7th day, it's done. You get the product. It's a system. It's there. Now, people who are working with you, they know that you have structure. I can't bother you on the 3rd day. I can't bother you on whatever day, because you said to me, on the 4th day, you'll send me the first draft. Now, if the 4th day passes and you've not sent the first draft, then I can ask what's happening. You know, so you have structure, you have routine. So a lot of organizations in that we need to start teaching our leaders on how to create systems. And systems, they create order. Systems, they create order and they create proper routine. Because you can tell when someone is disorganized. You can tell when someone is running around like a headless chicken to do things. You can tell. So all we're trying to say, all we are trying to say here as we wrap up this coaching session is that the elements that we are touching here are part and parcel of the foundational build up of helping you to develop a system, of helping you to develop a management system of how to manage your project, a management system on how, what is it that you need to do in order to deliver on your vision. So nothing will happen by default, but everything will happen by structure, by proper follow-up, by plan, you know. So I know people get excited over vision boards and things like that, but the implementation of any vision has to be practical through a mission. It has to be structured.
And it has to be customer-centric. It has to focus on what the customer needs.
Yes.
And what the customer is expecting from you. It has to be there, coach.
Yes. So my last remarks, maybe we can talk about other things. My last remarks is two things. It's important to have a management system for internal affairs, for internal running of your project, your business. It's important to have a management system. And the management system will then connect to how you deal with clients, how you deal with the implementation of your project. So that has to be defined. How do you deal with the clients and how do you interact? That system has to be defined. And for me, I'm saying these things should be there even before you bring people on board. Because if you bring people on board without defining this structure, then you're in trouble. But
chaos.
It's going to be chaos.
You are breeding chaos.
Yeah. How are you going to measure performance? How are you going to measure productivity? I was coaching one of some contractor guy, and I was like, man, how do you measure productivity? He was like, no, people must work. But how? How do you measure productivity?
How do people achieve something that they don't know?
Yeah.
That's basically how you measure your productivity. People must know what is expected of them. They must know when they're at their highest. They must know when they are at their lowest, because there are set standards that have been set out for them to achieve. Yeah. Basically.
Right. Yeah. So we need to have systems. Yeah.
Yeah, we ought to have systems. We have to have systems even in our own personal lives. You know, we need to know what kind of a person I am. What do I allow into my life? What do I not tolerate in my life? You know, I used to have an English teacher, Mr. Mpuru, who used to say, you deserve what you tolerate. So it's same thing with business, because what that statement is saying is that if you do not have boundaries in your life, everything will fall in and fall out, and whenever and wherever, everything will just be happening to you. So whatever happens to you that you are not controlling, you deserve what you tolerate. That statement has bugged me all my life, ever since I knew Mr. Mpuru, and ever since he said that. So I guard my life, I guard my family and my home. I guard what goes in, who comes in, who doesn't, who will not come into my home, because I have a system. I want certain people in my life, and I will not accept certain things, certain words, certain people into my life. So it's the same with business. If you do not have that, I guess what I'm saying is that if you do not have that in your personal life, it will be very difficult for you to then expect it to work even in a business if it's something that you have never learned. But it's something that you can learn. You can be the guard, you know, of your business by having proper systems and teaching people how to do things in your business, teaching people where to be, how to behave, even in your own life. You know, we cannot just be free flows. Business cannot be a free flow. You cannot be hiring and firing people without explaining to people what the expectations are. And there are organizations that manage that, like your CCMA. If you just say people must work, and then the next thing you fire people and you did not explain to them what actually must happen, you will be taken to task if you do not take people to task.
Yes.
If you do not manage something, something will manage you. If you do not manage your employees will manage you. So
Yeah.
it's basically that. It's basically that we have got to have systems. And thank you so much, Coach, for the lessons we learned this week. I hope that next week is going to be better. Do we have something that we're going to do in the next week? Coach, have you prepared something for us just to give us snippets and teasers in terms of what's coming next week?
Right. So maybe next week we'll continue to talk about systematic, how to drive productivity through systematic development. So we'll still talk about it further, taking it to the next level on how to drive productivity, because as a leader, if you don't know how to set up structures and systems in terms of driving productivity, you would run a project at a failure, not knowing how to maximize the potential that you have. So you need to know how to maximize the team and guide them and provide the right leadership and framework in getting the best out of them. Yeah.
Absolutely, Coach. Thank you so much for being with us again this week. We look forward to next week. And, Coach, in your preparation, also try to bring it back to the entrepreneur. What I love about my show is that I want to work for the entrepreneurs, with the entrepreneurs, because I think there is great potential in entrepreneurship in South Africa. There is great, great, great potential that, our economy can go somewhere if entrepreneurs in our country are structured and they align themselves with proper systems. I think they will go to higher heights. They will actually achieve much more. There are startups, people that are starting that I want, when they listen to our show, they are able to take away lessons like this to say, if I don't have a structure, my business is not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess.
It's going to be a mess. Let's try every week to have that mindset in the head to say, entrepreneurs in South Africa, that's what we're trying to build. We are coaching businesses that are starting up. We are also coaching businesses that have made it. And we want to invite these businesses to come as evidence to say, hey, I was here and I made it. I hope our last week, Coach, you will be able to bring us somebody that you have worked with, either your clients who are willing to come out and say, this is where I was when I started with Coach Comfort, and this is where I am now. My business is thriving better than I was doing. It's not that we were failing, but business is thriving much more now. We took out a expansion strategy or growth strategy, and this is how Coach Comfort has guided us, and this is where we are now. My clients are happy. My internal clients, which are employees, are happy. They are well guided. They know what they come to do at work. They know what they're supposed to do. I hope we'll find us somebody like that, Coach, that can, come and bring us the good news and bring us, that thing to say, these lessons that we are talking about here, they're just not things that we thumbsuck, things that we just talking from a theoretical point of view. But here is somebody that has done and have listened to you and have achieved what you advised them to do.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see.
Thank you, Coach.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Coach. We look forward to next week. I just want to say a few words to our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for always being with us, embracing us with your presence. And I hope that our show brings you much more lessons, life lessons and business lessons that you would improve your life, improve your businesses. And to our fellow South Africans, I hope that you continue to adhere to COVID-19 lockdown regulations. The numbers are growing so badly. I think yesterday we were sitting at, on Monday, we were sitting at 9,000, Sunday or Monday, we were sitting at 9,000 plus COVID confirmed cases. And majority of them are actually coming from Gauteng. So guys, I pray and I pray to God that, he will help us and sustain us. And we need to also, exercise caution as human beings, as families. We need to exercise caution, continue to teach our young ones to take care of themselves, wash those hands with soap, sanitize your hands, wear your masks everywhere. You know, when you're visiting other families, please wear your mask. When you're in church, wear your masks. It does not mean that when God says, I will not leave you nor forsake you, it does not mean that you should not do your part. You know, James 5 verse 2, I think it's 5 verse 2 also says the faith that is exercised with actions is much better. You know, you need to exercise our faith, but also take action and do the right things, do what is required, and God will take care of the rest. I love you very much, South Africa, and I know that we will conquer all of this. This COVID-19, we will conquer it. Let's pray for our country. Let's pray for our leadership of the country. Let's pray for our churches. And from me to you, I love you, South Africa, and I love my church. And I hope that everything else will fall into place according to God's purpose and according to God's will in our lives. Until we meet again next week, please do take care.